Sometimes you see a gun and you're like, man, that thing just looks like it's from the Old West. Or that thing just looks like a pirate gun. Or that thing just looks steampunky. And sometimes you look at a gun and you're like, man, that looks like it came straight out of sci-fi. So let's reverse the polarity of the neutron flow and go straight to warp speed and take a look at 5 guns that look like they're right out of sci-fi. So this list is going to be actual real firearms. These are not going to be fictitious firearms that came out of sci-fi movies or TV shows. So no phasers, no Star Wars blasters, no Zat-Nicotels. We'll start off with the honorable mention, which is going to be a small collection of guns that were tricked up to make them look a little bit more sci-fi. These are going to be guns that had to have some things done to them to make them look a bit more sci-fi like. Now some of these are going to be some pretty small things done to them, such as the Jericho 941, which managed to show up in Cowboy Bebop in animated form. We just see that Spike has some unusual grips on this, but otherwise it's not a whole lot different from a regular Jericho, although it does look like it belongs to a space cowboy. We'll have the famous case of the Mauser C96, or the broom handle Mauser, which managed to find its way into Star Wars after having a few things done to it. A little bit at the end of the barrel, a scope on top, some vents stuck on the front of the mag well to trick it up, and now you have Han Solo's famous blaster. Akin to that is the Bergman 1894, and you have a replica Bergman being tripped up. This one managed to show up on The Mandalorian, being the title character's pistol of choice, because he's a Mandalorian and guns are part of his religion. And probably the most tricked up gun, which is going to be the Mini 14, which managed to make its way into Starship Troopers. Now this is a Mini 14 that was put in a Muzzleite MZ14 bullpup stock. Well, that wasn't quite sci-fi enough, so they took bits off of a Beretta shotgun to just trick this thing up more, and now you've got an awesome bug killing machine. And as we get into our number 5 choice, we're going to get into another category, and that's going to be bullpups. That's right, just a lot of different bullpups. Bullpups are strange looking, some more than others, but they're all weird looking and look like they belong in sci-fi. I mean, look at the FN FS2000 or F2000. This thing looks strange. It already looks like some sort of Halo sci-fi blaster thing. Now a lot of people think it looks more like a tuna, but I think it looks kind of sci-fi. The Kel-Tec bullpup shotgun, this 2-magazined thing, that is weird. The South African Neosted 2000 is another really unusual looking gun there. They like putting 2000 in these because it seems so futuristic. 2000 when you weren't past 2000. Now in 2020, 2000's like, wow, that's kind of lame now. We'll get into our number 4, which will be the Chiappa Rhino. Now the Chiappa Rhino is one strange looking revolver. You start off with that hexagonal cylinder that you've got. Then you've got the barrel lining up with the bottom of the cylinder instead of the top. Now the reason it lines up at the bottom there is to give it a low bore axis. Now the idea with a low bore axis is that instead of it pulling up here and pushing back and giving all that force on you like a lever there, it's just pushing right there, much closer to where your hand is. So that's going to be a lot less perceived recoil on it. You still have to have something up top for the sights to go onto, and it gives it this really quirky look. Now this is another gun that managed to find its way into a sci-fi film, but this one managed to do it completely unaltered, and that will be in The Expanse, where this is the handgun of choice of Detective Miller. You have another pistol that is very similar to this, and that would be the Matiba Unica. This is actually a semi-auto revolver, and yeah, there's not a lot of those, the Wesley Fosbury being the most famous one aside from the Matiba, and that thing just looks like a hodgepodge together weird thing. So the Matiba has a portion of it that slides back just like a pistol, except that that sliding back action is what causes the cylinder to move into the next position. And the Matiba managed to itself show up in something akin to Sci-Fi in the anime Ghost in the Shell, where it is Tagusa's handgun. Number 3 on our list is the Gyrojet. Now the Gyrojet is something very different in that it shoots rockets. That's right, little tiny rockets. It gets the name Gyrojet because the rockets are designed to spin and to have a gyroscopic spin on them to keep them shooting straight. The big selling point and idea behind the Gyrojet was that since it is a rocket that's launching off of there, it's not going to have a lot of recoil because it's initially going to be leaving the gun at a low velocity. But as it travels, the rocket will accelerate. Now this ended up not being quite as good as they wanted it to be because it had a lot of reliability problems and also just a lot of expense issues. But the thing shoots rockets. So in the James Bond film, You Only Live Twice, there was a Gyrojet. I mean, of course that's what they're using there because that's a crazy futuristic seeming thing. It goes perfectly into a Bond film from the 60s. Our number 2 is going to be, frankly, a pretty awful gun, and that is going to be the USFA Zip 22. Okay, this thing just doesn't even look like a gun. It looks like, I don't know what it looks like. Like, does it even have a grip? I don't know. It like takes 1022 mags, which is weird. And you got these pins that you have to use to like set it and get it loaded. I mean, you could throw that thing right onto a sci-fi set and no one would think twice about it because it looks like some strange futuristic gun thing. It doesn't look like a gun. How could it look like a gun without a grip? I mean, really. Get a grip, Zip 22. No, I mean, really, get a grip. You don't have a grip. How are people supposed to hold you? It's like trying to shoot with a cell phone or something. How are you supposed to do that? And for our number 1, we're going with something that looks like retro sci-fi. Yeah, this is not going to be a modern futuristic sci-fi, at least now. But in the 50s, this thing sure did look futuristic. And that is the Whitney Wolverine. This is a 22 pistol, which was crazy at the time for having an aluminum frame. Now, this seemed like a pretty crazy idea at the time. I mean, it's aluminum. How can this thing like hold up? Well, it's shooting 22. I mean, how much do you need there? But besides that craziness there, it's the design and the look of this thing. They went with that old school 1950s futuristic look. So this thing looks like it came straight out of Buck Rogers. This looks like it's from some 1950s sci-fi serial. I mean, I think this is really an amazing looking gun, especially in the nickel with the white grips. Those things are just, that is just a beautiful looking gun. I haven't seen anything in handgun design that really just shows that old school atomic age design that you see there. Now, there aren't a whole lot of them around because they didn't make them for all that long. They didn't really promote it particularly well. And then right around the time they were getting that going, Colt and Ruger both ended up putting out competitors of this that were a few dollars cheaper. So, I mean, you got Colt, which is like a really, really well-known brand, and Ruger, which was pretty well known at that point as well. They both got guns out there. You got this other company that you ever heard of, and yeah, the thing looks cool, but it's, you know, more expensive. Well, what one are you going to go with? And so bad marketing and getting undercut on the price kind of made that disappear. We had a company that was making reproduction Wolverines. They were doing that with polymer frames, and they did that for a bit through the 20-teens. They unfortunately ceased operations on that, and so there aren't any more of those. There's been talk of someone else with some leftover parts getting Wolverine production going again, but it unfortunately hasn't happened, and the Whitney Wolverine may be gone as far as a new production gun. So if you found this video interesting, be sure to give it a thumbs up and a like. You can go down into the comment section and leave any of your thoughts down in there. You can also subscribe to my channel and click the little bell notification to make sure that you catch all the videos that I post so you don't miss anything. I'm Jeremy with Poindexter G, and we'll see you next time.